Before Spielberg became the great he is known as today, he was a nobody, trying to get his foot in the door in Hollywood. His debut wasn't a blockbuster or a theatrical release, but a TV movie, adapted from a short story published in Playboy. And yet, somehow, it's the most suspenseful movie he's ever made. This is Duel.
I'd like to report a truck driver that's been endangering my life.
The year is 1971. A 24-year-old Steven Spielberg is yet to make his first movie. He spent the last few years as a journeyman TV director, going from show to show, working on whatever he could get his hands on.
Not a lot of shows. I didn't do a lot of television. I tried to pick and choose the shows that, in a strange way, it was kind of a conundrum, a catch-22. I was trying to pick and choose the shows they would offer me, because most television producers weren't interested in working with this kid.
The work was long and hard, but what it did give Spielberg was the opportunity to experiment and learn how to make a movie on the job.
The creators and producers of Columbo, and they asked me if I would do the first show of the season. It was a great honor to be invited to do that first show. So I treated that like a little mini movie, and I made the movie with the psychology of a film director, not a TV director. I said, I'm going to make this look like, within the time they're giving me, I'm going to make it look like $1 million.
This one episode of Columbo, Murder by the Book, impressed Universal producers enough to give him a shot at making a film for ABC's Movie of the Week. This film would be his first, Duel.
An original motion picture produced especially for ABC.
And that's sort of how it all began.
The story is simple. David Mann, a travelling salesman, overtakes an old rusty truck in the Californian desert, only for the mysterious truck driver to respond with a deadly game of cat and mouse. That's it. No backstory, no motive, no explanation. Seems simple. Maybe too simple to stretch into a movie.
For a period of time, I presented the idea to a number of series on television, and they thought it was too limited. They said, no, there's just not enough there.
But what Spielberg saw was not man versus truck for 70 minutes, but a Hitchcockian thriller such as Psycho or The Birds on Wheels. The foundation was strong. The screenplay was written by Richard Matheson, one of the great suspense writers of the 20th century, having written some of the most famous episodes of The Twilight Zone. The script, essentially, is just a series of escalating encounters of the truck driver tormenting and trying to kill man, pushing him off the road, leading him into oncoming traffic, and terrorising him like a great white on the hunt. What makes it work, though, is restraint. The truck doesn't always attack. It stalks, appears, disappears, and waits, like a predator. What Spielberg did, though, was elevate the writing into a coherent, exhilarating story. But how? He understood that suspense isn't about action, but anticipation.
In order to get suspense, you provide the audience with a certain amount of information and leave the rest of it to their own imagination.
Spielberg's greatest weapon when making Duel was restraint. He doesn't go straight into the action, he torments the audience first. Every shot of the truck, man, or the road is done with intent. He teases the violence with low-angle tracking shots of the vehicles, wide desert frames isolating David Mann completely, and close-ups trapping us inside his anxiety. But the one thing that makes Duel stand out, and something he would do again, is treating the truck driver the same as he treats the great white in Jaws. He hides it. The truck driver is never explicitly seen in Duel. We only see his boots, his hands, and the wild beast he tames. This allows the viewer to come up with their own interpretation of what he looks like and what his purpose is, making it scarier. He plays around with it in a scene in the diner where Man, having just dodged death, walks inside to clean up, only for him to see the truck outside waiting for him, empty, meaning someone in the diner must be his petroleum-fueled stalker. The camera locks onto Man's perspective as he scans the room, studying the boots of all the customers. We're no longer watching him, we're trapped inside his paranoia.
Now wait a minute. Now wait just a minute.
It's so simple, yet so effective.
What I learned from Hitchcock was don't ever let the audience off the hook. Be a whore about keeping the audience on tenterhooks as long as possible before giving them some clue or some kind of relief.
The mystery of the truck driver gives a supernatural element to David Mann's foe, anthropomorphizing the truck, so that when it does arrive in frame, it seems like an oily monster with illuminated eyes and a long snout. If Robert Shaw were around, it'd be worthy of a monologue too.
Sometimes he wouldn't go away. Sometimes that shark, he looks right into you, right into your eyes. You know the thing about a shark, he's got lifeless eyes, black eyes, like a doll's eyes.
In an interview from Empire between Edgar Wright and Spielberg, the Cornetto trilogy director called Duel almost an art film, saying when you watch it, you feel that it's a silent suspense film. And he's right. In typical Spielberg fashion, the visual storytelling was immaculate. You could watch it without sound and still understand the story. And because dialogue was minimal, most of the storytelling was done through composition. It was pioneering in movies, but unheard of in television. At the time, TV movies were shot quickly and cheaply. Basic coverage, heavy dialogue, and figuring the rest out in the edit. But for Spielberg, this was not good enough. He didn't want to sacrifice his style for convenience. The young director had a notoriety in the TV industry. Producers saw his visionary style not as pioneering, but annoying. He would seldom get asked back to do additional episodes of TV, as his episodes would always visually stand out from the rest. So when it came to Duel, he was not going to waste his opportunity. He wanted to shoot all of it on location, which was going to be hard, as he only had 10 days to do it.
And he said to me, you cannot shoot a movie of this scale on location in 10 days. You need to send somebody else out to shoot all these plates and do it on a soundstage with process. And I said, Wally, I don't want to shoot this if I have to go inside. It's going to look fake. You can look out all the windows of the car. It won't be a chase. It'll be a guy comfortably sitting on a soundstage with bad process out the windows, which is always out of sync with the way the grips move the car. The car moves this way, the process goes that way. It never works. And Wally said, if you stay on schedule for the first 3 days, then you can shoot the whole thing on location. Otherwise, you got to come back to the studio. And I said, okay.
He had the locations, the visuals, the truck and the suspense. There was only one piece left in this puzzle. The salesman who would be driving the car. David Mann is the only real character in the script. Apart from the occasional bystander to the chase, he's the one the camera's pointed at, and therefore, the focal point of the movie. Spielberg had to get someone who could convey the anxiety of being hunted. His face had to carry all the emotions and storytelling of the picture. And for the aspiring director, there was only one option: Dennis Weaver, a character actor from the golden age of Hollywood.
I immediately said, oh my God, it's got to be Dennis Weaver. And I just went nuts. And George said, why are you so hot on Dennis Weaver? I said, you never saw Touch of Evil? You never saw The Motel Caretaker? He reached a level of anxiety and panic in Touch of Evil and paranoia that I envisioned David Mann, the character he was playing in Duel, arriving at in the last act.
Weaver's performance grounds the film. He plays Mann as an ordinary person in an extraordinary situation. Without him, the suspense collapses. Spielberg has said that Duel is what qualified him for Jaws, and the stories are pretty similar. An everyman goes up against a Goliath, and against the odds, in the final moments, defeats it with one final blow, in very dramatic fashion. What this film shows is what you can do with the medium. You don't need big budgets, big sets, or big casts. All you need is a good idea, and someone who knows how to visualize it. It also helps to be one of the greatest directors of all time. I guess that's why it's now referred to as the best TV movie ever made. What were you doing at 24 years old? Because Spielberg was making history. Anyway, this is what I do between jobs. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, it really helps me out, and thank you very much for watching.